So I guess I'll start with the first mods or accessories that I did on the bike. One of the very first was this windshield. It's an Aprilia OEM windshield, taller windshield. The main difference is the stock one essentially takes this line right there and cuts right across like that. So I don't know how much height it gives you, but it gives you a little bit more that way than it does actual height. But I think it was a noticeable increase in blowover for the freeway and just cruising around. So I think that I really recommended that. The next thing, one of the next things I did was I picked up these Woodcraft axle sliders, front and the rear, and then these these are the Rhizoma, and then this part right there is actually plastic. I thought that would be aluminum. Seems to be fine though. And then these, just FYI, if you go onto the Woodcraft website, you actually have to filter probably down to like 2021 or 23 RS660, or else they don't pop up for this year for some reason. They just haven't done their filtering yet or whatever on their website. What else? Probably one of the next things I did, even before I did the triple clamp and clip-ons, was the spider levers. So you've got those guys. They're both adjustable. This one on the brake here, I took off the adjuster and added the remote adjuster, which kind of seems like overkill or it's weird, but believe it or not, the remote adjuster, I like it just because these stock adjusters, like for example the one that you leave on for the clutch here, it really doesn't move very easily. It's kind of, I almost feel like I want to open it up and take it apart and maybe clean it up or something. Something about it just seems too hard to move for adjustment. And luckily you don't really adjust it very often, but it's a little weird. They do that bend up. It's pretty nice. Get that on both sides. And then pretty much quickly after that, I got the triple clamps and the clip-ons, all spider. I changed these screws out to be black. Those are kind of the obvious sore thumb silver ones that kind of bugged me. And then I picked up the Jet Prime, this left street switch, and this was the one you can in the other video where the left and the right were actually reversed. So this was my right blinker and that was my left blinker. That's how you turn them off. So I had to go up, take this open. Luckily I didn't have to take the entire front off again, but I was able to get the windshield popped out and take just that off. And then I had to resplice those two wires. So I had that in my video, and the guys at Jet Prime sent me the wiring diagram for the switch, and then I paid like $7 and bought the overall one-line wiring diagram for the bike off of AF1. And then the two kind of made sense. It was pretty obvious which two leads I needed to swap, and it worked out the first time, so that was nice. And then I've got this guy, the kill switch, on switch, and then I've actually added a remote, if I can find it, a remote kill switch. So look at that. Turn it off. And then now this on doesn't work. And then hit my kill back on. There we go. Although my kill switch, the one I use, the very first time I did it, I just totally got hasty on the wiring and my connection was bad. So I was out one night and it wasn't starting up very good. I shook the handlebars and I got it back together. Sure enough, I was just retarded, dumb, bad wiring. So I fixed that, and I made it so the splice is, I just have to take off these two screws and pop this off, and I can access to where the splice is, so that's nice. And then here's another note: when you do install this switch, on the video that Jet Prime has, they just cram the key right underneath this whole assembly. Actually saw this on another guy's video. I think it was Obsession Engineering, a British guy or something, where as long as you have at least the tank off, even better if you have the air box out, you mount the little key, the key deal that goes with this, with your original key, the sensor or the whatever it is, the tracker thing, and you mount that up into the frame. That way, when you take this apart, it was fighting me a couple times. I had it mounted up in there, and it was a pain in the ass to get the gas tank back on. It was just kind of annoying. So once I got that out of the way, it's easy. I mean, I've already probably, for one reason or another, taken the gas tank off about 4 times now. That was one thing I did. I added the Robum Engineering has a tiny little piece that goes on the fuel tank outlet, so when you set it on the ground, it's easy to break that plastic piece. So they have a little metal protector that bolts on next to that, so you can safely set it on the ground when you take it off the bike. Yeah, so then when I did the triple and the clamps, I also got new grips. These are some Pro Grip 716s or something like that, I think. And I got these off Rocky Mountain. Other places have Pro Grip too. I don't really love this grip, but it's fine. These actually pulled back, I guess, from riding. You know, you have to kind of adjust them a little bit. I don't really use glue. I just use the safety wire. And then I've got these grip donuts. I mean, technically these are for bigger grips, like a BMX or a dirt bike grip. So you get kind of, but if anything, it covers that up. And if they're at an angle, so I like it. It just kind of make sure my hand stays farther out. Every little bit matters. Same with here. What else we got here? So on this, we've got the Jet Prime switch. Throttle. I highly recommend this. It's just so, even just for example, like if you really want to full throttle the bike or prepared to full throttle, if it was stock, you have to over grab to prepare for this. I could be grabbing right there. I'm full throttle right there. On the original one, you would have to over grab, and you'd still probably be lower than that. So it's kind of annoying. So your whole power band's right there, and the fact that it pulls a lot harder, it's easier to keep a steadier throttle. So the short throw of it might scare somebody to think, oh, there's too much power, short throw, but the short throw at the end of the day makes it easier to use your power. It's actually a safer throttle. I think you probably have a less chance of whiskey throttling with this throttle than you would with the stock throttle. And then once you get this or feel this, you'll laugh at the stock throttle. It's just such a pile of garbage compared to this. It really is. And then this switch, something to note on between this switch and this throttle, they're this kind of titanium color. I wish they made it in the black that matched all this, but as far as I can tell, they don't. They just have it in this titanium, which actually doesn't, once it's all said and done, it blends in perfectly. It's really nice. And then right now, once you get these clip-ons mounted, the section between here to get the interior trim is kind of, I haven't even bothered to put it back in, to be honest, but I think you'd actually have to at least loosen your levers to get those up out of the way. And it's kind of a tight fit. I actually thought of maybe cutting it right there, and that way I could leave this piece on and then take the piece off that goes in there separately. But right now what I did, I've got my USB thing mounted on this side. It's a dual USB. That way I can have my phone plugged in right there. And then I've also got another mount that goes on there. So if I wanted to, I could plug in 2 phones or some kind of a different device or whatever. I actually like the phone, and is nice right here because I use a speedometer app. So when you're using like your challenge or time attack mode on your display, the speed limit is like tiny. It's really small, so it's easier to just check your speed with my speedometer sitting over here. These are random, the Brembo little covers. These I got off eBay. They're supposedly Ducati OEM, There's one there, and then they came with the smaller one that I threw on the rear brake here. They look kind of cool. And then let's see what else. Here's a future plan. I'm probably gonna do the underslung caliper. I'd say for sure, just because I mean I've seen even old bikes from 20 years ago that came with that stock. It's obviously better for various reasons. I think what you do too, once you flip this out, this ends up over here, and then you just change out these two bolts. You flip them around so that stays there, and then your bleeder's back in the back again. I've heard some people talk about that. Let's see what else. I've got this little guy, the Spider, little brake guard. It's pretty nice. I tried to do thread my bars like on a dirt bike, but the diameter of these bars is pretty big, and it's kind of a thin wall just towards the outside, so I gave up on the threaded inserts for now, and I'm just using the little clamp ones that come with this. I don't really love those, but they're okay. It works. What else? So I do have the Gabbro tune, and I have it set up just for the stock exhaust. And something I didn't know until I did it was I just assumed even if you did the Gabbro with the stock exhaust that you would automatically get rid of the blinkers in there, but it doesn't. Apparently if you use it with the stock exhaust, it retains the blinkers in your mirrors. So I was prepared to put some different mirrors and whatnot, so now I'm fine with these mirrors. I'm just going to keep them. Possibly I may even buy the Euro mirrors without the blinker, so like in the future I am going to get an exhaust eventually, and I'll do that tune that does take away the blinkers. So I think it's like probably $200. I just kind of like these bigger mirrors the way they stick out. I don't know. I came up with another scenario. I have a couple I think I have it sitting there. These are the double take mirrors, and I was gonna put a couple of these on there, and I was using the Aprilia OEM mirror block offs, and then that bolt fit perfectly in there, and I had these mounted, and I tested them to probably maybe about 110 miles an hour, and they actually held. I didn't even need to adjust it. And so these, they looked a little weird, but they're kind of neat. So I was prepared to put these on if I lost a blinker in the mirror, and then I ended up not needing to use these. And then even the OEM Aprilia mirror block offs are they actually don't even fit the contour of the bike. There's a little bit of, they kind of like pop up a little bit. So just a side note, it's not perfect, even though it does fit. I think the main difference between this generation and the previous for this is that previously the fairing was just flat and the mirror mounted on top. This now has a cutout for the mirror, so it really needs to match the shape. Prior, the shape wasn't as critical as it is on this generation. So it is what it is. I think possibly on this generation, I feel like this opening might actually be a little deeper, a little more as far as for clearance and stuff on your, right there, you can see them basically right there. If I adjust the clutch all the way out, it will hit, but it's not, there's no obstruction. And then same with this side. You can actually see it's got a little bit of wear on there, but it still doesn't actually, it doesn't move it. It just barely touches. And then you can see I've got those are the Spider steering stops. They're plastic 3D. They're nice. They feel nice when you bang it against the frame and stuff. It's not as harsh as like a metal. And then I've got, these are the Spider bar ends. I'm using just the one on the one side right now since I've got the brake guard on that side, but they're pretty cool. But this is a little sharp. Once I was bending over to do something and I raked my shoulder when I was standing up. That was kind of gnarly. But they're nice, other than being a little sharp. And then I picked up the Robum Engineering, the tank guards. I don't have them handy. I kind of just got them because, for all I know, they're probably not going to make those things forever. And they were, to me, those carbon fiber ones look a little funky and thin, more aesthetic than actual guard. So I picked up the Robums, but I think I would only use them maybe if I was actually going to go on the track and have increase my chances dramatically of laying the bike down. It's part of there's a little bit of gap, and I've even seen another guy's video where he put them on, and there's just kind of a gap ever so slightly because it's a pretty stiff plastic. So I don't know. I may or may not use those, but I just wanted to get them while I could. Kind of, if you wait too long to get something, you can't get period correct mods for bikes if you wait 5 years down the road or something. Still running the stock sprocket. You can see it's got that rubber. I think it's basically just a sound dampener. Running that. Stock rear. Stock chain. I think probably at about 300 miles, most of the chain goop from the original chain lube had worn off and splattered on whatever the bike and just on the chain guard. So I got that all cleaned up. I just brushed the hell out of the chain and just, spun it and just cleaned this little over and over and got it really cleaned out, and then re-lubed it with the cleaner, better lube. Using some like 3M kind of silicone lube, and I washed it with some Motul stuff, and I've washed it a couple times with the Motul as well. So now after a fresh lube, I probably lube it every couple hundred miles. I'll get like a little bit like that, like it's easy to wash off. And then you can see a little tiny bit of splatter on that. That's the shift sensor. And I actually ordered a random part I just came across. It's a cover for that shift sensor. I thought about making my own. It looks like I could easy little fabricate some aluminum little cap over there. But I was wondering if there was a reason why they don't put a cap under there, and it affected the performance of it. But apparently, since I saw this other cover that somebody made, I'm gonna pick one of those up. It was like $15 or something, and then if I don't like it, I could still make my own or just leave it as is. I've seen plenty of bikes that just leave it like this. So and funny thing, it was the only reason I found it partially was because there's this company Mapped that